This is DWTV's special coverage of the quake disaster in Japan. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin.
And I'm Steve Shade with the business news for you.
Here's what's happening right now. A massive earthquake has rocked northern Japan, triggering a huge tsunami that devastated hundreds of miles of coastline. The quake measured 8.9 on the Richter scale, one of the largest ever recorded. The tremor sparked at least 80 fires, and beyond Japan, tsunami warnings now cover almost all of the Pacific Rim, from Russia to South America. The earth and the ocean turned against Japan on Friday. A massive earthquake hit the country and triggered a tsunami that has devastated much of the country's northeastern shoreline. Police say more than 300 people have died, most of them in Sendai, the city worst hit. 500 people are missing. Japan's prime minister has declared a nuclear emergency after the cooling system at the Fukushima plant failed. People in the area have been ordered to evacuate, but authorities say that no radiation has been released. Tsunami warnings remain in effect for most of the Pacific coastline all the way to California. We begin with the latest from Japan.
Even as further quakes shake Japan, the initial cleanup has begun. The sheer size of the catastrophe poses equally enormous challenges. Rubble has to be removed, and numerous fires must be brought under control. This inferno at the oil refinery in Ichihara will likely continue to burn for days. Rebuilding infrastructure will be a top priority. Transportation has collapsed in cities hit by the quake. Some subway lines in Tokyo are reportedly up and running again, but millions of commuters remain stranded.
I was on the train, so it was very strong and quite scary.
Those who couldn't make it home spent the night in emergency shelters, like here in Miyagi Prefecture.
The roads shook and heaved. It was terrible. I don't know how to get home.
Power outages are widespread, and the government has asked supermarkets to provide emergency supplies to those who need it.
All right, let's go live to our correspondent Chris Johnson, who's in Tokyo. Chris, a report coming in of another strong earthquake in Japan, this in the northwest of the country. Can you tell us more?
That's right. That's right. We felt it in Tokyo. It was a strong one, too. And this is amazing because it's in a completely different part of the country. It's on the western side, on the Japan sea side, around Nagano Prefecture and Niigata Prefecture. There's a very popular hot spring around there called Nozawa Onsen that a lot of Europeans might know who have traveled to Japan. It's apparently a 6.6. It's close to an earthquake there a couple of years ago that did a lot of damage and killed a lot of people as well. And so, you know, the concern now is that the fault lines are so active. When's the next one going to hit and where?
Yeah, I mean, you're also dealing with dozens of aftershocks following the main quake that took place about 14 hours ago, aren't you?
That's right. I mean, what's amazing about this is that this is not on the Pacific Ocean side. This is on the Japan sea side. It's completely on the other side of the mountain ranges of the country, so it's got a lot of people spooked here in Tokyo. We don't feel that we're out of trouble yet. You know, we're still worried that it could hit. There could be a direct hit on the city here as well.
Give us, before we let you go, Chris, what's the latest on the situation at the Fukushima nuclear power facility?
Well, the last reports were that the government's saying that they believe they have it more under control, that they were able to pour water to cool down the hot core of the reactor, and the U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also saying that U.S. forces were involved in helping out on that effort. There's still a lot of concern about some of the fires that are burning around in Sendai City and other parts of the country. And they're also saying that the train lines are going to be down tomorrow as well, so it's going to be very difficult when the sun comes up here in the next few hours for authorities and rescue workers to get into those devastated areas.
Yeah, I'm sure daybreak will be a very sobering experience for everyone in Japan. Chris Johnson for us in Tokyo. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Well, Japanese authorities are taking steps to make sure that the earthquake disaster does not lead to a nuclear catastrophe. Officials at the Fukushima nuclear power facility say that they will release slightly radioactive vapor to ease the dangerously high pressure in one of the reactors. The cooling system in that reactor failed after the quake, forcing Japan's prime minister to declare a nuclear emergency. 6,000 people have been ordered to evacuate the area. Fukushima is the world's largest nuclear power facility with 14 reactors. I want to talk a little bit more about that. I'm joined now live by Ian Hoare-Lacy, Director of Public Communications with the World Nuclear Association in London. Ian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How severe is the situation right now at Fukushima? What would you say?
Well, all the reactors shut down as they're programmed to do. That there were 11 operating reactors in the area affected. They all shut down automatically. And that much worked fine. And where there was a power interruption, then emergency generators all started up okay. But at two reactors at one plant, the generators then cut out after about an hour.
Okay.
Now, the problem that gives rise to is that without electrical power, you can't drive the pumps that are needed to circulate the cooling water. And that's the issue there, and that's given rise to some concern over the last 12 hours in restoring electrical supply.
Ian, officials are saying that they're going to release radioactive vapor. How dangerous is that for the reactor? How dangerous is that for the people who are around the facility?
Well, not at all, I think. But look, it'll be monitored and reported on, but we don't know yet. But there's no indication that it is likely to be at any sort of dangerous level. But the fact is that there has been this breakdown in the electrical supply and hence in the cooling function, and that is serious. But it's not threatening anybody, I wouldn't have thought.
I mean, you say the loss of power, the loss of electricity is an issue, is a threat for the facility. What about aftershocks in the area?
Well, I don't know. We'll just have to keep tuned and hear what's reported. I don't know of the aftershocks. I don't know any more than the TEPCO, the main utility, is releasing on its website. It's putting out bulletins roughly hourly.
Okay, but that could have threatened the structural integrity of those reactors, couldn't it, Ian?
I don't think there's any likelihood of that at all.
Okay.
There's no suggestion from any reports so far that the structural integrity of the reactors is at all threatened.
Okay. Ian Hoare-Lacy with the World Nuclear Association in London talking with us there. Ian, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
You're welcome. Bye.
Well, tsunami warnings have now been lifted around much of the Pacific Rim, including Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and the Philippines, but swells will be reaching the South American coast within hours. The first waves generated by the tsunami have hit the west coast of the United States and Canada. In Southern California, the surges caused damage to boats in the Santa Cruz Marina. Waves in the north of the state were expected to reach as high as 2 meters. Well, earlier I spoke to Andy Goldberg in Santa Cruz, and I asked him what he had been hearing about the tsunami hitting the state of Oregon.
There has not been any reports of major damage anywhere along the west coast up till now. People woke up. It was a quintessentially sunny California morning, but there were sirens in some cities and people were fearing the worst. But apart from the ebbing of tides that one usually sees with tsunamis, the waves were very mild, and actually some people even welcomed the tsunami effect. Mostly the surfers rushed to get into the water hoping to ride some big waves, and that was about the extent of the excitement.
All right, Andy, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Andy Goldberg reporting from Santa Cruz in California. Thank you very much, Andy. All right, Steve's here with more on that nuclear emergency in Japan. All right, we're joined by Daniel Schorr. He is from the German Research Center for Geosciences in Potsdam. Mr. Schorr, what can we expect in the next few hours? Are we talking about more aftershocks? And of course, we've got the tsunami that's still moving.
Well, the tsunami is moving and already hit the island of Taiwan, Indonesia, Hawaii, and as we heard before, already the coast of Oregon and maybe northern parts of California. So far, no significant destructions have been reported from this tsunami, so I think it's almost safe to expect that along the coast of the Pacific, we don't have to expect too strong destructions at all. However, the situation in Japan is a completely different one. We'll have to expect very strong aftershocks in the next days, weeks, and even months ahead. And as a rule of thumb, you can say that the largest aftershock is usually about a magnitude unit smaller than the main shock. So we're talking here about a magnitude 7 earthquake. And given that the rupture extends all along the eastern coast of Japan, these aftershocks can actually happen on the southern tip, and that would make them being very close to the metropolitan area of Tokyo and Yokohama.
All right, so Tokyo could still be threatened by this. Are we also talking about the possibility then of more tsunamis with these aftershocks?
In fact, yes, as long as we have aftershocks that have a very same mechanism happen on a subduction plate at the plate boundary offshore, we can have more tsunamis.
Were there any signs that could have suggested that this type of earthquake was going to take place?
Not at all. There's no chance as of now to predict earthquakes. However, the Japanese researchers, and I'm actually part in this project, we're working together in creating models to forecast earthquakes and looking at them over time, simply to learn more about the physics of earthquakes. So in the hope that at some day we'll be able to give a little better estimate than today. Today, it's not possible.
Okay, I mean, you have spent time in Japan.
Yes.
Would you say that the Japanese are the most prepared when it comes to dealing with a severe earthquake?
I would say yes. They are trained from their early childhood on in schools. The government is providing a lot of information about what to do in case of an earthquake, where to find water, where to gather, and where you can expect help. And that's very important for the people in Japan, and I think in no other country these measures are in place.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Daniel Schorr with the German Research Center for Geosciences. Thank you for coming in to talk with us and giving us a little bit of explanation about what's going on. Thank you, Daniel.